Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Film Ignite podcast. For all things film and all things TV, this is the place to be. Today, we discuss 2002's Brazilian crime drama, City of God. City of God is directed by Fernando Meirelles and Kaita Lund and is loosely based on true events and a novel from 1997 by the same name. The film tells the story of a city in Rio in which crime and gangs are running rampant, and throughout the film we see various characters and storylines intertwine with one another to tell a story of sprawling years, of the effects of gang violence, greed, love, and power. This movie truly is an amazing experience. While watching this film, my first thought, and one that kept coming back to me while watching, is that it feels like a Martin Scorsese movie. The story is told from the first-person perspective of Rocket, which is his name in English, but his real nickname is Firecracker. The entire movie is narrated by him as he tells the story of the City of God, and the way the entire movie plays out, something about it just gave me a Martin Scorsese vibe. I'm telling you, the narration mixed with the editing and the plethora of characters and the way the timeline went back and forth, I felt like I was watching a Brazilian Goodfellas. Now, I'm not saying this movie is Brazilian Goodfellas, I'm just giving a comparison as to what I felt this movie reminded me of. Scorsese has a unique style to his movies, and they have a certain flow to them. And some of those elements include narration, frantic editing, lots of characters, lots of them expendable, and a sprawling timeline to tell his stories. City of God feels the same way. You meet the two main characters right away in the frantic and chaotic opening scene, Rocket and Lil Z. The opening scene showcases just how chaotic the rest of the film will continue to feel. The camera work is all handheld the entire time, really making you feel like you're in the streets of the city at all times. That really helps make this movie so immersive. You cannot escape the streets and the violence and the chaos because every scene is dragging you along. You are right up close to every character, every conversation, and every shootout. Editing in this movie is also spectacular, with so many scenes flawlessly transitioning from one to the next. And since the story is told in fragments, meaning we start at the end, then jump back in time, then go back forward multiple times to learn the backstory of characters, and then have that backstory connect to things we've already seen, it really makes for some fantastic editing. There's a scene where Lil Z comes knocking on the door of Blackie's apartment, and the first time you see it from Rocket's perspective, as he had just come there looking for a joint. He barges through the door, and him and his gang are standing tall, and you're wondering what is going to happen. But then you get the flashback of the story of the apartment, all in one camera shot of the room, but fading in and out from different time periods. We get the captivating story spanning months in just one shot, with only the scenery and characters changing. Then we cut back to Lil Z barging into the apartment, the same camera shot, and this time we get to see the story of Lil Z, taking us back to previous moments, like the heist from the start of the movie where Lil Z killed everyone inside the motel. Then we cut back to the apartment scene from a different angle, and the scene finally plays out. The editing and camera work done here is fantastic, and it's moments like these that show the genius storytelling this movie has to offer. Not only are they able to tell interesting and compelling character stories, but they do so in such a unique way that keeps you engaged the entire time. Another component to this film that keeps it exciting and engaging is the music, because in every scene the music is once again reminding me of a Scorsese film and how it is used in the background of narration scenes or montages, and barely any songs with lyrics are used, mostly instrumental songs with the sounds of Rio. It helps set the tone, mood, and atmosphere of this movie. Now, the tone of this film is something very interesting. In my opinion, this film was not what I was expecting tone-wise. I was honestly expecting a more gritty, dark crime drama, and in some aspects I got that. But this film was not as dark and gritty as I thought. But it took me a while to realize that it was done on purpose. The gang violence and brutal deaths aren't supposed to come as a shock due to violence. They aren't necessarily supposed to evoke extreme emotional responses because for these characters, it's just another day in the life. Another gang member dead, another recruited. When we hear the story of the tender trio, we get so invested in their lives, relationships with women, their families, that when their demise comes, it is devastating. But for moments like this, the film takes a more natural approach. And I hate to say it again, but I get Scorsese vibes from things like this. Like when a certain someone gets whacked in Goodfellas, it's a brutal death in a dark moment, but the tone and overall mood of the scene isn't depressing and emotionally devastating. There's music playing in a montage, and just as important as his character was to the story, just like that, he's gone, and moved on to the next big thing. Like when Shaggy tries to escape but is shot by the police, the entire scene is intense and sad, but the aftermath feels so much less intense because of the music playing and the narration. Like it's just another day in the life. And I guess looking at it like that adds some emotion too. All these kids who have lives to live are wasting them away in gang violence. But make no mistake, one of the darkest scenes in the movie is when Lil Z forces one of his members to kill another kid. That scene was incredibly disturbing to watch. For one reason was, well, he's getting another kid to kill a kid, and it hurts me deep in my soul to know that stuff like this happens in real life. But the acting from the two boys looked so real. The little boy crying after being shot in the foot genuinely looks like he's terrified and hurt. Those raw and real moments are treated with respect and make for intense and disturbing viewing of the extent that the gang violence can take you. As a whole, this movie is actually more entertaining than anything else. For starters, I think this movie is actually really funny. Not in the sense that there's lots of jokes, but some parts of the narration are funny, and some of the ways the cuts and edits are used are pretty funny as well. I'd like to think of it more as dark humor, like at the very end of the movie when Lil Zay is shot dead about 70 times by a bunch of kids. There's a part of me that thinks the way it was filmed and with the music and all, it had to have been meant to be funny just a little bit. The whole scene of Rocket and his friend meeting Knockout Ned, then flirting with the girl at the diner, then burning her phone number napkin to smoke was hilarious. There are lots of funny moments throughout, and some of that is led on just because they're kids. At the end of the day, behind all the chaos and all the violence, these are just kids, who in a perfect world are not nearly involved with any of this stuff. But the harsh reality of the world doesn't have it that way. So the glimpses within the movie where we just get to see the kids be kids, like on the beach, having fun taking photos, or at the dance just having a good time, make this movie have an emotional punch. The theme of innocence and childhood is shown through Benny, who throughout the years of working with Lil Zay becomes more and more distant from the crime world and wants to just go out with a girl and enjoy life. His quest for peace and love didn't get him far, as the life he previously lived caught up to him in an unlucky manner, but the point was he wanted out, and he was willing to help Lil Zay get out. But Lil Zay's mind had been infected since he was too young to even begin to get out of the cycle. The cycle that we see at the end of the movie as Rocket walks down the street, now a possible successful photographer, ready to start a proper career to earn clean money, walks right past another group of hoodlums who talk about murder and who their next target is, as the cycle continues in the city of God. Lil Zay is meant to be the antagonist of the story, and there are very few times where you can actually feel bad for him, but a moment was at Benny's farewell, and they use this farewell party as a portal into innocence and a way out, but Lil Zay just cannot break through. He asks the girl to dance, and when she says no, he doesn't get his way, and he resorts to his old sadistic and violent ways. And he's always had those ways since a child. Maybe I just want to backtrack on what I said before about this movie not being that dark and gritty. It's not that the subject matter isn't very serious and dark, it's just the way that it's executed film-wise reflects it in a different tone, which I can respect, because it shows the cultural difference between the way we see violence and death and whatnot in different areas of the world besides North America. This is a movie that doesn't really have a defiant beginning, middle, and end. It's mostly just a story of the city of God, following specific people, following certain events, and things sort of just happen, and we are just along for the ride. The brilliance of this story is that it can be told by anyone at any point in time from anywhere in the city. City of God is a coming-of-age story drenched in chaos and violence as the children amongst the city are trapped in an endless cycle driven by poverty that they can never escape. Even Rocket, who finally lands an internship as a photographer, still says he only gets paid a little. I also gotta add just how brilliantly the characters' lives are all connected, and how they are all intertwined with one another throughout the entire story. Especially the dynamic between Rocket and Lil Zay, knowing their brothers were friends, and the twist at the end having Otto kill Ned due to the gang violence from years back was insanely well done and made for a wild moment. Just another example of how this movie uses its genius storytelling. The director of the film stated that he used amateur actors for authenticity, and it works. Seeing faces you cannot pinpoint as popular actors really helps you see these kids as just that. Just random kids you're watching their life story unfold. All the actors are fantastic in this movie, and the documentary style filmmaking showcased just how quick they all must have had to have been on their feet, as a lot of conversations seem somewhat improvised. All the amateur actors were recruited from the slums of Rio, and the actor that played Rocket actually lived in the city of God himself. A truly timeless tale, a sprawling narrative, dynamic and compelling characters, and being completely transported to the city of God from the opening minutes make this movie something to experience. This is one of the most unique gangster/crime dramas I've ever seen. The filmmaking is absolutely on point, so many incredible shots, transitions, edits, and a phenomenal cast of amateur actors make for a wild ride. You'll laugh, cry, and think about this movie for days, and I thank everyone involved for making this movie happen. This is one of those movies that just hits you with a glimpse of the harsher realities that people face in life. This is life, and it's ugly, because beyond my little shell, there's an unforgiving world out there full of dangerous people, but also people looking for the same thing that I am: peace and love. Watching movies like this make me really emotional after the fact, just thinking about them. But I'm so glad I watched this movie, and I highly recommend you do too, because it is such a fun yet depressing story filled with so many great themes to pick apart. And just the setting alone transports you to another world that lies right here on Earth. And for some reason that still blows my mind, just really showing me how privileged I really am. Well, those are my thoughts on City of God. The Film Ignite podcast is meant to ignite discussion on all things film and TV, so I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on City of God? Let me know. As always, thank you all for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode.